Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positive vibes here on the show, and with me right now, I've got a very special guest. He is a legend of the WWE's Attitude Era. If you grew up watching wrestling in the late 90s, has worked with Edge and Christian, the Hardy Boys. He's been involved in so many cool and crazy storylines, and is a trainer now, has his own school. Pleased to welcome the one, the only Gangrel. Welcome to Wrestling with Heart.
What's going on, Wrestling with Heart? How are you? Glad to be here.
Yes, it's my pleasure. So let's talk about your childhood. You were born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Talk about your upbringing.
So I was born in Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, raised in Deerfield Beach, Florida, went to Deerfield Beach High. Grew up on the, some could say it was the wrong side of the tracks. It was the rough side of the tracks. It was definitely probably one of the roughest neighborhoods in Deerfield. And, I wanted to play, I wanted to be a professional football player and go on to also be a preacher, believe it or not. And then, unfortunately, I lost my brother. He died at a very young age, and then I broke my neck, and they said I couldn't do any more sports. So, any physical sports. So I kind of took a wrong turn. I went total different direction. So from the age of like 13 to 17, I was a lost soul. I was all over the place, getting in all kinds of trouble, falling into the neighborhood mischief that you can. And then I discovered pro wrestling. I was old enough. I didn't need a parent's signature anymore. So I'd already moved out from home. I was on my own. So then I started wrestling at 17 and I never looked back. Professional wrestling, yeah.
Whenever I've had people on the show, a lot of them got into sports at an early age. It seems like it was an escape for a lot of them. Was that the same for you?
Yeah, I just thought that's the only way I'm going to get out of this neighborhood and get off to a good college. And then it became where I wanted to be a professional football player and a preacher. So yeah, it was definitely an escape. And but then I found pro wrestling. It saved me because I was lost, man. So I owe pro wrestling everything. It owes me nothing.
Now, growing up, were you watching wrestling just for fun before you realized, hey, I want to do this for a living?
Oh yeah, growing up in South Florida was championship wrestling from Florida. So, it was creature feature, wrestling, and roller derby on a Saturday. So after we watched all three of those, would be out in our front yard in the little median out there, all the little neighborhood, just beating the heck out of each other, imitating all the wrestling moves and whatnot, like dropping elbows and trying to body slam each other. Actually, probably doing way more harm than I ever did playing football or anything else. But
Yeah. It seems like football, wrestling kind of go hand in hand as far as physicality. Did you have any favorites growing up?
Well, Dusty Rhodes is one of mine. Barry Windham. Barry Windham. I was a big fan of Barry Windham because little did I know that, like, when I was watching Barry Windham, 3 years later, I would be like wrestling and be in the same locker rooms with Barry Windham. So it was a crazy journey. And as the Professor Boris Malenko trained me, he always says the journey is the jewel. There's no jewel at the end of the journey or anything. The journey is the jewel, and you got to remember that. And you got to enjoy the journey and appreciate everything you take in and you learn and you experience along that way.
Exactly. You have to be appreciative. Live for the moment. Don't take any moment for granted. And like you said, you train under Boris Malenko. It's a tough business. You really, people think, oh, wrestling, and like once you get into that ring, you really take a lot of punishment on your body. I mean, it's hard.
It's an art form. I'll say it's a violent ballet. You got to be an artist. You got to have some grace to you, but there's a lot of violence involved. So it's a violent ballet, and but it's a great outlet. If you're having, if you're younger, what I try to stress to people that when they're in high school and stuff, they feel like, oh, I didn't get into college football get into baseball, or I didn't get a scholarship for this or that. What do I do? It's a great outlet, to get into to relieve all that anger and stress and frustrations you have. You can go out there, you can be the nicest guy in the world and have to say yes sir, yes ma'am, shaking hands, work the bank teller job, or whatever job it is in life that you may not feel like you're happy doing, but you have to work, you got to eat, you got to pay your rent, you got to feed your family, or whatever your situation is. But then you can have this whole alter life as a pro wrestler. You can go out there and just can be the meanest person you want in the ring and snarl and growl at everybody, and go home and sleep very well at night instead of holding all that frustration in from that 40-hour week. And it's the same thing for the wrestling fans too, is they could have a stressful week at work doing what they're doing, and then they could go to a show and they could just go out there and vent and rage and let loose and enjoy another world, like. So it's a lot like going to a movie, but it's just a violent ballet.
Yeah, it's all entertainment, just all rolled into one. Acting, theater, just so many different outlets. And want to talk about your start in the business. Any pieces of advice that Boris gave you or your trainers gave you that you recall and have applied to today?
uh, you know, he was just he would always he would just always tell you the journey is the jewel. He would get upset when he go, I'm talking apples and you're talking oranges. But it was just to enjoy it. He really said to enjoy it, because it's you're you got to look at it as almost, he would say, you're think of a fruit, an orange, right? He goes, this business is going to take you like an orange. They're going to squeeze you out. They're going to get everything out of you until there's nothing left, and then you're done, kid. So you have to enjoy it, and advice, as in training wise, you just got to log a lot of ring time. You got to be patient. You got to get in there and not get frustrated. You just got to stay the course and be steady as you row. You got to get in there and just take it day by day. Don't get frustrated. Everybody learns on different levels. Some people pick things up like 1, 2, 3. Some people pick it up like 1, 2, and then maybe 3, 4, 5 comes quicker. We're all different people. We're all different individuals. And being a teacher now, teaching wrestling, I'm a coach, and I've been doing that on and off really since I started. I could tell you how I got into that. So I'll tell you a quick story. So I go, when I saw this ad in the paper, right? I told you I've already moved out on my own. They've taken all sports away. So I'm frustrated. So I see it added in the newspaper that says, be a professional wrestler, make money on the weekend. So I go, well, I'm gonna go fight people and make some money. So I go in the wrestling school, and Malenko is giving me a tour. Rusty was the head trainer. Rusty Brooks trained me too. He's a local fella down out of South Florida. And so I'm like, they're showing me the school, and I'm like sizing everybody up, going, I could take that guy. Oh, he's got a black guy. He's pretty good. So I'm in there like sizing everything up, and thinking like, I'm gonna go in here and just fight these guys. So about 3 weeks into the training, Rusty comes up to me. He was the head trainer, under Boris Malenko, and he's like, yo, do you think this is and I go, what? And he goes, do you think it's, and back then they didn't want to say it was entertainment, or or in any way that the outcome is determined. And I go, oh man. And I said, can I get my money back? He goes, what do you mean? Oh yeah. I go, I need to make some money. And he goes, you don't get into it for the money, kid. You get into it for the passion. I go, I understand, but I need to make some money. And then he wouldn't give me my small deposit I put down. But I said, listen, I got to be honest. I can't really afford to keep training. I can't. I'm really in a tough situation, which I was already on my own at 17, a father, and because I had went that other route when I took sports away when I broke my neck. And he said, listen, you're really good at it. Just stay here. As long as you always get back to professional wrestling, we'll put you down as a trainer and we won't charge you. So they took care of me. So that's how, from that point on, even as I trained there, I trained the other people that came in just under me like a year. And then I've always continued to be a part of wrestling academies and schools throughout my whole time in the 38 years.
Yeah, I mean, paying it forward, that's the most important thing, because you want to have the wrestling business grow. I mean, it thrives on the new blood, the new talent.
Yeah. And it's evolved. Wrestling's evolved a lot, like movies have, and video games, where it's Like one like small person can take out an army at 30. So the mentality of it's kind of evolved and changed. But I still try to instill the old school ways and the respect and the handshaking and the foundation, but yet still try to be contemporary and with the modern ways, you know. So it's tough for me. I'm learning every day as a trainer with every student's different. They have different personalities. It's a different generation. So, but I'm very blessed to be able to pay that forward and still keep that promise all these years later and physically be able to do it. You know,
Did you feel you were able to pick up everything quick, or did it take you time to learn the basics?
I was blessed with in the sense that I could pick up all the moves really quick, and in the other sense, I was a wrestling fan prior, so I would emulate what I seen on TV before, like elbow this. So that all kind of came in naturally, but there's a lot more to it than all that. You know, that's half the battle is under watching it and being a fan. So you kind of you're not afraid to act silly without a better word to say. Going like, "Ooh, yeah," or whatever. Uh, but when you get more in depth into it, as you learn the psychology of things and characters versus characters and understanding how to put a show together and all that was a little bit harder. And I'm still learning that 38 years later. Every time I'm a part of a show where I'm helping out or I'm putting the show together, I'm producing it, I'm sitting there going, yeah, I didn't think of that. Let me put it there. And
Yeah, it's creative. You have to. It involves so much creativity because there's so much you can do with it. I had Sin Bodhi on a while ago. He was telling me about how the both of you've had matches together with really interesting stipulations.
Oh, the Michael Jackson knife fight. Yeah, he's done. He's put this guy put a firecracker, a tie full of firecrackers and lit him on fire on me. The guy is a maniac. I love him, but he's insane. Like, but he has a very good mind for professional wrestling. He gets it. He's very creative. He doesn't see it as black and white. He sees it in the Simbodi world, the Chiazzoni world, his world, But it all makes sense, and he can get away with it. He's so talented. He's just a great.
Yes. And the thing is like you have to have that creativity because it goes along with your character work. And I think the Gangrel character to me is just so fascinating. Were you ever a fan of vampires or goth or dark characters
Uh,
growing up?
of course,
Or
yeah. Movie, The Lost Boys is how I came up with this. It was I was with Luna. We were sitting around on a Sunday one day. She goes, "Oh, we got to watch this movie," and it was the movie The Lost Boys. Have you seen The Lost Boys?
yeah, yeah, a long time ago.
Death by Stereo and all that. So after we got done watching, I said, "Oh, it'd be really cool to wrestle as a vampire." And she goes, "Oh, you should." I go, "No, no, no, you can't." And then just coincidentally, a week later, I ran into a guy from Puerto Rico, and he was looking for some like monster characters down in Puerto Rico. And he goes, "Well, what do you wrestle as?" And I'm like, "A vampire." Like I had never done it yet, or even thought about how I could do it. And then within 24 hours, I came up with fangs and a look and a 8x10 to send off with him to Puerto Rico. And next thing you know, I was down there wrestling as the Vampire Warrior, like within a month or something of that. So that spawned the vampire thing. But yes, I was a fan of vampire movies. I still watch vampire movies. I haven't watched the new one that was out at Christmas yet, though.
The fact you're still able to do what you're doing, loving what you're doing, having passion. I mean, there's something to be said about that because people could, not everybody can enjoy what they do, go to work, come home, and travel. But you seem to enjoy it. What makes it so motivating for you to keep going to work and enjoying wrestling to this day?
It's the fans. I love traveling, so I like going to bed at night, not knowing where I am, waking up and seeing an amazing place in the morning, something different every time. But it really comes down to the fans. Without the fans, couldn't do it. It's a high and it's a rush when you go out there and they still remember you and they're behind every move set you do or when you spray the blood. Without them, and I couldn't thank all the fans enough of professional. Without them, you can't do what you love, and when they love you and they still support you, it's an amazing feeling. And that's my quick high. But my long term, more meaningful high now is training the younger talent and the younger men and women coming up in professional wrestling and seeing them move on to the scene and make it like I had a big hand in training a fella named Rusev or Miro,
Hmm.
who He did well. I helped him. Jacob Fatu is another one that I trained along with Rikishi out in California when I had a school. So to see him on top right now in WWE killing it is amazing. And hopefully Rusev, I think he just left AEW. I don't know what's going on, but hopefully he gets himself back on path. He gets back in the ring because they're two amazing guys. So see those. So on every level as they make it, I have another student that's in NWA named Ruthie J, which I was so happy for her to make it just to the NWA and watch them climb those levels. I got a couple more that I believe are getting ready to sign with NWA. So it's that's my long, meaningful high for wrestling, watching them succeed. So I can just keep back and say, I had a part of that. That's really cool and be so happy. So I experienced their highs with them and their lows, and there's a lot more lows than highs. It's loop-de-loops and hoop-de-hoops and a lot of smiling, but there's a lot of crying, but it's an emotional roller coaster for sure.
It definitely is. And talk about something that's just on another level. Your entrance music is like one of the best of all time, I feel, because when that organ starts playing and the fire breaks out and you rise up, I mean, when you first heard that piece of music, what was going through your head, vibing to that song?
When I first heard it, I thought like, did they take that from Possum Kingdom? Because and nobody, I put a post up to earlier. Some people, like I'd say 70% of the people, I don't know if they're just being nice. They go, "Oh, I hear what you hear, Gangrel." The other 30 are going, "I hear absolutely nothing of what you're hearing." But they had asked me what kind of music did they picture coming out to, and I said, "Well, there's this cool song, Possum Kingdom. It's got some whispering and stuff." So I think they took from that and it came up with that music. But as soon as I heard it, I was like, it was, like, is that backward masking? Is that whispering? Or what is that coming up? And it kind of gave me goosebumps too. I still get a rush every time it thinks, but imagine yourself under a stage in an elevator as you see flames light up fire and you're looking up through this pit and you're rising up through, I guess, hell or wherever I'm coming from, Gangrel, straight out of hell. But, you're rising up and then the people are like, what the heck, and they get then after a while they knew who you were, and then that rush too was for forever they kept telling me you can't smile. I go, I'm not smiling. They go, yes, every time you come down the ramp you start smiling. I go, not. They go, yeah, you are. For almost 3 months they tried to get me to stop smiling. Eventually they just said forget about it, because what would happen is I'd come up and that fire is so cool, the entrance is so cool, the music's rocking, and then the people get behind you, even though you're working, a heel, bad guy. I started to come down the ramp and I'd hold it, but I get halfway down, like, this is great, and I'd start smiling. So after 3 months, they said, okay, man, you're a happy vampire that's mean.
I mean, to this day, people still talk about the Brood, very instrumental in helping give guys like Edge and Christian their start, their rise as far as characters go. I mean, that's got to feel good all these years later, and as well working with the Hardys, the new Brood later on. What was it like working with them in the early part of their career?
Edge is an amazing individual. He's a great guy. Anything you heard about him and believe it, that he's just like a really great individual. Simbodi could tell you that he grew up with him. It's funny enough. I think Nick grew up with him. Simbodi, him and Christian. Christian is Christian. Christian you see on AEW, that's Christian. That's him squawking away. But he's a great talent, great person too. But that's more his personality. But Edge is more of the like really sweet and the mama's boy. He loved his mom and his dog. He's just really that wholesome Canadian guy that he comes across like he is. So it's weird when he goes and he's more dark and he's going more brutish, like he's drawing from a place. But it's hard to see that because you just know how sweet he is and what a great guy. And Edge, he didn't need the sure, the whole Brood thing helped us all. But he didn't need it. I think they had him charted in to be a star. I think they knew he was going to be a star from day one when they signed him. They just didn't know how to start him, and it was just a perfect storm with me feuding him and then becoming the Brood. It was great chemistry, and it was an awesome time, and it was great.
And you also got to be work with Undertaker as well, Ministry of Darkness. Any fond memories of that time?
That was some strange times, because sometimes if I go back to my background of wanting to be a preacher stuff, I was always questioning, man, is it cool to be a vampire or not? Am I crossing some lines? So I'd always ask myself that. But then in the ministry, when they started sacrificing people and doing these things, you're like, whoa. But but it was a really overall like cool visual, everybody would come out on the stage and stand, and it, but I don't think it helped us so much. People do remember it if they were ministry fans, but I think the Brood thing was, me personally, I think it was better by itself, better by itself.
Yeah. Let's switch gears and talk about the stuff you've done outside of the business. I know you've been working, as you said, you've trained a lot of up and coming stars in the industry, but I know you've been involved with helping out with several causes as well. Talk to me about some of the stuff you've done as far as charity work is concerned.
Well, I'm married to my lovely, beautiful wife who saved my life here, like Susan Nelson, and her daughter, who's my stepdaughter, Anna. She has epilepsy, and my wife's on the board of Epilepsy Alliance Florida. So we do a lot of walks and charity stuff like that. But we also try to always attend. So we're personally involved in that. We do things. There's another one coming up in April in Hollywood. That's the local one. And but we do a lot of walks for cancers. Being we both lost our parents for cancer, stuff like that. Toy drives, the basic community stuff in the community, getting out and without food on the holidays and stuff like that. So epilepsy is the main one, being it focuses, around the daughter, that touches more personally, and the cancer, different cancer things we do for Anthony Rizzo's walk off every year in Parkland. But we try to always be involved in the community in whatever way we can.
You had mentioned the epilepsy stuff. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, like so. Her daughter, well, I think she was around 4. She was diagnosed with epilepsy, and nothing helped her. Surgeries, different medicines, and stuff like that. And then she started wrestling for a while. So I trained her to wrestle, and she was doing well with that because she could feel when her seizures would come. Her hand would twitch. She was able to take medicine, but they had cut these growths out in her head, and then they grew back again in her early 20s, right, or 20, and they couldn't take it out anymore because it would have affected her left side like a stroke. They couldn't cut it out from her brain, so they put a pacemaker in. And when they put that in, she had to stop wrestling because the headaches were so severe. She couldn't do rolls anymore. But her seizures had never stopped. She's one of the unfortunate ones that really just, she has them daily and daily, daily, daily. So, my wife, she's a saint, trying to care, and her daughter Anna is a warrior. She's an epilepsy warrior going through that. To see somebody have a seizure, we'd be sitting here doing this interview, and then I would hear a big thud, and I'd have to go run, and there'd be a puddle of blood. She's hit her head on the floor or something like that. So it's a frightening, humbling thing at the same time. And so my wife's a saint, going through that, and her daughter Anna, our stepdaughter, is definitely a warrior. And it's no easy task. And anybody out there and their families that are going through that, my heart goes out there to them. And you can reach out if you're in Florida, check out Epilepsy Alliance Florida and stuff like that. And you can see all the cool events. You can go out and support with the different walks. We got one coming up in Hollywood on April 1st or 5th. I think it's the 5th. I'm not sure. Early April, first weekend in April, I'm sure it is. But check that out. Come out and support it. They appreciate it. Put your purple on. Wear your purple.
It's so hard when you have to deal with all this stuff because, especially somebody that's, really wants to learn how to wrestle and
Yeah.
overcome so much in their life.
Well, they just feel like at that young age, you just feel like they're angry. They think, why, if there's God, why is he doing this to them, to them? There's a lot of emotions that everybody else is a normal life, or their mom gets overprotective and drives them completely crazy. So you end up getting a wedge when your mom's just trying to help you so much that you think, geez, I'm all right, because you've been living with this your whole life, but you can't take away how your parent feels for you. And so they're going to be overprotective. So then you get those clashes of like, fine, I've been like, and it's very frustrating for everybody, and very sad, but they live with it. They learn how, and they're just warriors, warriors. Amazing what they can go through and still smile.
Absolutely. They've overcome so many obstacles in their life, after
Yeah.
years and years. Why do you feel passionate about helping out in your community?
I always want to try to give back because like I said, I owe pro wrestling everything. So it's a platform that people will respect. And I want, this goes back to wanting to be a preacher when I was younger. So I was always wanting to help and give. So I feel like if I was able to come out of a rough neighborhood and get past all the odds, I broke my neck. I broke it twice. I broke it playing football, and then I broke it in WWE in 2000, I believe it was. That's when I disappeared off TV for a while. Was I broke my neck again. So, but pro wrestling gives you a platform, and you should use it in a positive way. And I'm a Florida dude, South Florida, and I always want to get back to where I live and where I come from. And if I could change somebody's life, because like the path I was on was a horrible path. I should have been in prison or dead. The path, the route I took, and to if I could change somebody's thinking with just a little bit of advice or a hello or a smile or hey, come check that show or this and that, then it's not. I need to do more than that in life, but that's just it's just rewarding to.
Yeah,
I feel
it's
like
about.
I feel like I need to do that.
Yeah, I mean, you've got such an inspiring story and overcome so much, be able to pay it forward and help others, train others, help out in your family. It's very important to make a difference and help out when you need to, when people are going through so much in their life. And you've been to so many different conventions and signings. I mean, it has to feel good when people come up to you and share memories, share their stories about when they saw Gangrel at a show or on television, uh, all these years later.
Oh yeah, there's a girl called Masovich that wrestles. I don't know if you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah, so she used to write me on like what was it called, MySpace back in the day, like MySpace. And she was a fan. Like I remember it was her name was like Pitbull something. She'd always go, "Oh, she was a huge fan, this and that." And then I didn't hear from her for a while. And then I ran into her. She goes, "Hey, do you remember me?" She was like wrestling in Japan, and now she's this big star. So those are really cool. And when you see that happen, where they were like a fan of yours, they come in. Sometimes you go, "Oh no, I hope I didn't drag them into this horrible business," but because it's not an easy road traveled, unless you're able to stop and say, "Okay, the journey is the jewel," and understand it's all about the journey and not get caught up with if I don't make it, I didn't do anything in life or to succeed. You got to understand all the great things that come from the path you're on, and but a lot of people don't see that. A lot of them go to it like I originally went, like, oh, I got to get a job and make some money. They think that, or I'm going to be a star, but you have to slow it down and rewind it and just and learn from all the lessons and you have so many more experiences in professional wrestling you would just going to work, washing dishes or cutting grass. You're out there and you're in a room where there's three, or say it's a small show, there's 300 to 500 people on the show. Well, they're all watching you and up there. So that's 300 or 500 people that you're at work connecting with, and different personalities and things and people you can learn from or experience things from or change their frowns to smiles, turn their frowns around, upside
yeah,
down.
exactly. All about putting a smile and trying to be positive, live in the moment,
Yeah.
and try to be optimistic. Before we go, Gangrel, I know you've worked with so many different people over the course of your career. Have you had like any favorite opponents that you enjoyed being in the ring with?
Man, like everybody thinks I'm crazy when I say this, but do you remember Steve Blackman?
Yes.
I
Yeah.
loved I loved wrestling Steve Blackman, Loved him. Simbodi's another one because he with such silliness we'd have. It's always a night out for him. But I loved wrestling Steve Blackman. I don't and uh there's so many though. You wrestle so many people, you can just name names out all over the place. But yeah, but for whatever reason, I always say Steve Blackman when people ask me that. I loved wrestling Steve.
Yeah, the martial arts guru with the nunchucks.
I don't know if it was because I knew that he could just kill me at will if he wanted to, and then I would always push the limits with him, and to see because he was such a serious guy, and I'd always be doing silly things, and he'd be like, "I think you're on drugs, you crazy man," he'd say some crazy, like, "What's wrong with you? You're a vampire," He just had this sense of but I don't know, I just loved wrestling though.
Yeah, it's a good one. Well, Gangrel, this has been wonderful getting the chance to speak with you. I want to say thank you for coming on to the show. It means a lot to me and to my listeners and viewers that are watching this on YouTube. Where can people find more about you? I know you plugged the epilepsy cause that you've been working with earlier. If you don't mind plugging that again, as well as any other things you want to promote, feel free. The floor is yours.
Oh yeah, no. You can check out Coastal Championship Wrestling. That's where I'm currently training, and here in South Florida, it's CCW or Coastal Championship Wrestling. Or if you're looking for me and you want to follow what I'm doing, Gangrel13 on Instagram. I think Gangrel David Heath on Facebook. One of the others. You can find them through there somewhere. We're plugging in those names, But thanks for having me on here, and thanks for taking the time out to find positivity and spread more positivity out there in the universe, and put it out there, because there's so much negativity, and this world is so like upside down and crazy right now that but it matters what you're doing. It does. And thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. And you're more than welcome to come back.
Okay. Thank you, my man.
Absolutely. Take care.
All right. Peace.
This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.